Love is supposed to happen when you least expect it. That's an old saying you may have heard back in the day, and maybe a decade ago perhaps that might have still been true. And since then, the shift in society has been dramatic, yet subtle at the same time. Over the years, we have become reliant on algorithms to dictate our lives, whether we like it or not. From our doom scrolling for entertainment to using it to find the best cafe in town, we certainly rely on algorithms every single day, and unfortunately, this includes love. There's a reason why everyone is so afraid to date and love these days. It's hard to meet people. Everyone's a liar and a manipulator. People can't get over their exes. Everyone's emotionally unavailable. A lot of these reasons can certainly be true, but at the same time there's a big reason it's so hard to find love. It's not something that's supposed to be or can be manufactured. By now many people already complain about how dating apps aren't working. But why is there still demand then? Wouldn't they have died out if they didn't work? Because they made love convenient. Or at least, the illusion of love. No one needs to put in effort if there is the perception that you can load up an app and access your entire city with a few swipes in the comfort of your home. And even though we know it takes effort to set up a date and get to meet people, many still receive that cheap external validation from other people in the form of attention and likes, which only leads to unhealthy and unrealistic expectations. So, let's understand why manufactured love doesn't work. Let's start with the premise. Love is most certainly a need that's never going truly away. Whether you want to call it biological or simply being human, that urge is very difficult to overcome. There are more distractions than ever before, but we see time and time again how difficult life is to maintain when you have this raw craving for love and connection. The famous trope of meeting the one used to have some level of validity behind it. People would meet in unexpected places, and it was truly love at first sight. Many of us still crave this random chance of fate to meet the one. But it's something apps will never be able to replicate for one single reason. We have to actively participate and swipe away at each person. It's made love feel robotic and mechanical. Something that was meant to be a happy accident has become a monotonous, exhausting activity you do on a weekday night after work, whilst getting ready to sleep in an empty bed. How is that supposed to set the mood properly to meet the love of your life? But the death of serendipity goes much deeper than just the mechanical nature of swiping. Serendipity used to be built into the fabric of how we lived our lives. You'd meet people naturally through the course of existing, at work, through friends, at the gym, in classes, at coffee shops, bookstores, or random events. These meetings happened when you weren't looking for them, when you were just being yourself, focused on something else entirely. And that context mattered enormously. When you met someone while you were both struggling through the same difficult class, or when you struck up a conversation with someone in line at the grocery store, or when you got talking to someone at a friend's party, there was this beautiful element of chance involved. Neither of you were in dating mode necessarily. You were just two people whose paths crossed in the natural flow of life. This organic discovery process had a magic to it that apps can never recreate. For one thing, when you meet someone serendipitously, you're seeing them in their natural habitat, doing something they actually care about or dealing with real life. You're not seeing their dating persona, you're seeing who they are when they're not trying to find love. And often, that version of someone is more attractive than any curated profile could ever be. Serendipity also meant that you shared something from the very beginning. A common experience, a mutual friend, a shared interest or circumstance. You already had something to talk about, something to bond over, some reason why the universe had brought you together in that moment. It felt meaningful in a way that matching with someone based on photos and brief text never could. Because no matter what, it doesn't feel special when that same person could be talking to 3 different people at the same time. Now that we've systematized love, we've stripped away that sense of wonder and replaced it with a sense of work. Instead of love being something that happens to you, it's something you have to actively seek out and optimize for, and almost manipulate the situation to recreate this feeling. Instead of feeling grateful when you find someone special, you feel like you've successfully completed a task or made a good strategic decision. The shift from serendipity to systematic searching has created one of the worst issues with algorithmic love. It makes it nearly impossible to distinguish between someone's authentic self and the character they're playing. Everyone knows they're being evaluated within minutes of meeting, so everyone is performing their best version of themselves. And honestly, who can blame them? When you know you have maybe 1 or 2 dates to make an impression before someone moves on to the next option, of course you're going to put on your most charming, most interesting, most dateable persona. The problem is that this performance can be sustained for weeks or even months. People can fake being laid back when they're actually anxious. They can pretend to be adventurous when they're actually homebodies. They can act like they're over their ex when they're still carrying that baggage. They can seem emotionally available when they're actually terrified of intimacy. And because the stakes feel so high and the alternatives so abundant, people have become really good at maintaining these facades. And this makes genuine connections all the more harder to find. This is where the old way of meeting people had a big advantage. When you knew someone for months or years before anything romantic developed, you'd already seen their unguarded moments. You knew how they handled stress, disappointment, boredom, and conflict. Character can never be faked for extended periods of time. At some point, the mask will always slip. You'd seen them when they were sick, tired, or overwhelmed. You had a baseline understanding of who they really were beneath the social performance we all feel compelled to put on. Now you have to do all this whilst pretending you tick all the other boxes modern dating standards expects of you. But now we're expected to make major relationship decisions based on someone's dating persona, which is basically their highlight reel performed under pressure. It's like trying to evaluate an actor's abilities by only watching their audition tape. You might get a sense of their potential, but you have no idea what they're like when they're not actively trying to impress you. Using apps, context is reduced to whatever someone can fit in a few lines of text and some photos. You have no idea how they treat service workers or what they're like when they're stressed. You don't know if they're kind to animals or whether they remember birthdays. You can't see how they interact with their friends or whether they're the type of person who helps others without being asked. All of these things matter so much more than whether they look good in a bathroom selfie, but the app format makes it impossible to convey them authentically. This lack of context also means we miss out on people who might be perfect for us, but just aren't photogenic or good at writing bios. Some of the most interesting people are terrible at self-promotion. Some of the most beautiful people don't photograph well. Some of the most compatible partners might seem boring on paper, but come alive in person through their energy, their laugh, the way they listen, or their unique perspective on the world. How are people supposed to understand the massive contradiction that we are meant to be loved as who we are, yet we never feel good enough when we go on apps and see how much better the competition is? Algorithmic love allows us to put our best face and profile forward, but it also removes so many elements of being human. It promotes the idea that looks are above all when all we can see is a person's face. We are visual creatures, so we can see that people have friends or they do this or that hobby, but we also are skeptical creatures. We have doubts about it all. The performative male trend is an example of this. We can't tell if someone is being themselves or just putting on an act. And now that society has become clouded with artificial ways to inflate one's status, it becomes harder than ever to communicate a real signal other than the real world. Brands and fashion were supposed to signal taste or wealth, but now anyone can copy their fashion influencer and achieve the same look. In a sense, we are always performing when it comes to society. It's kind of a necessity to participate. But now the social signals and communication has broken down. The contract no longer makes sense. It's become this weird stalemate that leaves everyone unhappy and forced to participate in this fake algorithmic love to rely on, rather than risk the danger of public humiliation. Dating apps have conditioned us to make split-second decisions about people based on their most curated selves. But real attraction often builds slowly and subtly. That colleague who seemed boring at first, but whose dry humor you started to appreciate after working together for months. The friend of a friend who you barely noticed until you ended up having a 3-hour conversation about something you both cared deeply about that was a nice, pleasant surprise. The person who looked completely average until you saw how their face lit up when they talked about their passion project. This brings us to the fundamental truth that algorithmic love tries to circumvent. Real love always requires risk. There is no algorithm that can tell you whether someone is right for you because the only way to know is to invest time and emotional energy in getting to know them, and that investment comes with no guarantees. The old model of love was inherently risky. You might spend months developing feelings for someone who turned out to be incompatible. You might realize that your crush was just a projection of what you wanted them to be, rather than who they actually were. You might open your heart and get rejected. But this risk was also what made love meaningful. When someone chose to be with you after really knowing you, after seeing you at your worst and understanding your flaws, that meant something special. Algorithmic love promises to reduce this risk by appearing to give us more information upfront and more options to choose from. But it actually creates a different kind of risk. The risk of never truly knowing anyone. When you can always swipe to the next person, rather than working through difficulties or pushing past surface level attraction, you end up in this endless cycle of almost connections that never quite develop into anything real. And, perhaps worse, you're left with this constant nagging doubt about every connection you do make. Was this the right choice? What about all those other people you didn't give a real chance? What if someone better is still out there waiting to be discovered? This fear of missing out has become so pervasive that people struggle to commit even when they find something good, because the algorithm and society has convinced them that optimization is always possible. That someone may have less trauma or trust issues, and anything other than the more secure attachment is not worth risking for at all. The truth is, secure relationships and trust are built over time rather than expecting someone to be magically emotionally mature out of nowhere. This choice overload has made us more picky in superficial ways but less discerning in meaningful ways. Because they look good in photos and know how to charm on a first date. This is a big reason why so many people who meet through apps struggle with commitment. Some may call it avoidant attachment, but deep down, they know they've only seen a curated version of their partner, and they're never quite sure if the person they fell for is real or just really good at playing the role of an ideal partner. Without that foundation of knowing someone in multiple contexts over time, there's always this underlying uncertainty about whether you've made the right choice, or whether you could find better and missed out. And so, we're left with this modern dating paradox. We have access to more potential partners than ever before, but we're more afraid of commitment than previous generations. We can connect with people across vast distances and social circles, but we struggle to form deep connections with anyone. We have sophisticated matching algorithms and more information than ever, but we don't trust our own judgment about who might be right for us. The real tragedy is that, in trying to minimize the risk of choosing the wrong person, we've maximized the risk of never choosing anyone at all, or worse, choosing someone without ever really knowing them, which sets the stage for disappointment and heartbreak down the line when their true personality inevitably emerges. Love has always required a leap of faith, but it used to be a leap based on substantial evidence gathered over time. Now, we're expected to make that leap based on a profile and a few conversations, while simultaneously being told that we have unlimited other options if it doesn't work out. It's no wonder that so many relationships feel fragile and disposable when they're built on such a shaky foundation. The algorithmic approach to love has made us impatient with the natural rhythms of human connection. We want instant gratification and clear answers in a realm where the most beautiful things often develop slowly and unpredictably. We've optimized for efficiency in something that was never meant to be efficient, and in doing so, we've lost something essential about what makes love magical and special in the first place. The path back to real love requires accepting that uncertainty and risk are features, not bugs, of the human experience. Without it all, we lose that mystery and allure of meeting someone out of chance. We need to be choosing depth over breadth, patience over instant gratification, and the messy reality of getting to know someone over the clean fantasy of finding the perfect match, one swipe away. We need to be willing to invest in people without knowing the outcome, without knowing everything about them from their profile before committing, because people are inherently a lot more than what a profile can ever convey.